Hi, everyone. Welcome back to True Disabled Story. I'm honored to be here. My name is Nico, and I'm a white man with parted blonde hair, large blue and brown spectacles, and a black headset. I'm wearing a orange, blue, and white checkered button-up shirt underneath a green zip-up hoodie, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm seated against an office wall like roughly 25% of Americans, a full 20% of the global population, and a full 17% of Philadelphians, I'm disabled. Whether we look locally, nationally, or globally, disabled communities are full of dynamic, diverse, and frankly delightful people with their own stories to tell. All we have to do is listen. As many of you know, if you're listening to this series for not the first time, I was born disabled. I've never known differently, and I'll probably always be disabled. I'm naturally curious about other disabled people's experiences with their diagnostic journey, wherever they are in that process. Which brings me to today's guest. My friend and colleague Georgia is here to talk about her diagnostic journey and the role that she fills in her disabled community. I'm honored and excited to speak with her. Hi, Georgia. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. I was just playing the piano, so I'm in a really good mood.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
shall I do a bit of a visual description of myself?
Please.
Yeah. So I am a brown femme person. I have a tiny afro. I'm currently wearing a black silky type robe thing, and I have also an officey background behind me with just a cream wall. And my pronouns are they, them, or she, her.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Georgia. I really appreciate that. So, Georgia, what was your path to diagnosis like? Was this a surprise that hit you out of the blue? Was this something maybe you were actively pursuing or suspicious about? Paint that picture for us.
Hmm. So I actually have two unrelated conditions. So I'm going to go one at a time because they both have really different diagnostic journeys. The first thing I was diagnosed with is genetic, but it doesn't show up until a little bit later on in life. It's called Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, which is essentially a connective tissue disorder that means that your joints and your skin and your blood vessels, they're too stretchy. So you dislocate things, blood pools in your legs, and you faint, and lots of bits and bobs like that. And it kind of crept up on me, uh, knowing that something wasn't quite right with my body. As a kid, I had lots of digestive issues, but we just thought, oh, maybe I'm allergic to wheat or something. But like, we couldn't really figure out what to feed me that wasn't messing with me somehow, which was really tricky at home and at school. And then by the time I hit my teens, I was really dizzy all the time, just kind of spacey. It became part of my personality. People just thought I was like this floaty, kind of vaguely not really with it, daydreamy type person. But I was really dizzy. And at that point, we did go to a doctor who was not very useful, and who said like, "Oh, have you tried eating more?" And that wasn't really a useful comment at all. And this is coming off the back of years of doctors not really knowing why my digestive issues were so kind of off. So as a teen, I sort of slowly started having more injuries. I'd sprain my ankles all the time. Like have trouble walking sometimes and didn't really know why. I thought I was really clumsy, which I was because I was so dizzy and my joints kept dislocating. But I didn't know that's what was happening. So I just had this kind of, I suppose my disability became like a personality trait, rather than something that was diagnosed. And I got really, really unwell while I was at university. And the dizziness was at the point where like I could barely focus on what was in front of me. I had so much brain fog that I was kind of like I just couldn't study. I couldn't do anything. And my fatigue got so bad that I could barely get up. And I kept having doctors tell me there was nothing wrong. So I really just thought I was going crazy. Like I thought I was insane, or like deeply depressed, or it was a tricky time. And I did manage to start getting my mental health in a row about it. I used like mindfulness, and that was really useful. But at that point, I realized hey, this isn't a self-esteem thing. Um, this isn't a depression thing. There's actually something physically wrong. So I started doing my own research. And I found Ehlers Danlos online, and lots of people with Ehlers Danlos have quite a similar story to me because it's a whole system problem, and it doesn't show up like massively. It kind of creeps up over time as you do more damage to your joints over your life. So lots of people have a diagnostic story like mine, wherein you don't realize until things are really bad. And so I went to my GP with the diagnostic criteria, like, look, I meet this by this, and this way. Please refer me to a specialist. And she did, which was really nice because I'd been so used to them being like, nope. Um, and then I was referred to a musculoskeletal service, and then they refer you on to a specific specialist that deals with Ehlers-Danlos because it's a rare condition. Sorry, I put that in inverted commas because I don't think it's rare, and there's some more recent research that's thinking maybe this isn't so rare. But yes, you get sort of referred to a specialist, but that was going to take a year for me to get an appointment, because specialists and the NHS over in the UK, the National Health Service, is fairly underfunded at the moment, and was back then. So I ended up going private with somebody who works for the NHS but also works in a private hospital, and finally got my diagnosis then. And that was 12 years from the first time I'd been to the doctor to be like, what's going on? So that was a long diagnostic journey. And obviously it wasn't a surprise because I'd been trying to figure out what was wrong with me for so many years at that point, and had kind of, like, I knew which diagnostic criteria I met. It wasn't the kind of thing that you needed a blood test for. So I just needed some doctor to tick this off. And it was radically different from the diagnosis of my other condition, which is multiple sclerosis, which is quite a common condition. So doctors actually know what it is, and you do need specialist equipment to diagnose multiple sclerosis. So it was a really different journey. And I was already disabled, obviously with the Ehlers-Danlos, and it was over the pandemic, like in the middle of a lockdown, I started to lose sensation in my lower body. And at first, I just thought it was the Ehlers-Danlos doing shenanigans, because if you dislocate your hips, sometimes you like impinge a nerve, and then you go numb for a bit, and then it goes away when your hip's back in its socket in the right position and things. So first, I just thought it was that. And then it started to creep up to my chest, which is not very Ehlers-Danlos-y. So I went to my GP, who was like, if it doesn't calm down, call me back. But I woke up at like 7 a.m. I can't remember what day it was, with like this extreme pain in my neck, like blinding pain. And so we called the ambulance, and I spent the day, and it was the pandemic. So like nobody could see you very quickly, and nobody could come with me. And I was having the worst pain of my life, and I couldn't feel anything from the boob down. And it was a horrible day. But they eventually, after deciding that it probably had nothing to do with Ehlers-Danlos, had a neurologist come and have a look at me. And although they couldn't diagnose at that moment, they were like, it sounds like probably it's going to be MS. But we can't give you that diagnosis right now because you need an MRI. And plus, even if you have an MRI, with MS, you have to have often 2 distinct episodes or relapses for them to confirm it. So they sent me home. I was a little bit shell-shocked. And then, so they did do an MRI, and I did have scarring on my spinal cord, but they obviously couldn't confirm it yet. And then about 6 months later, I started to lose eyesight in one eye. And I remember the day because I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, am I allowed to swear? Is that okay? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I was a bit like, oh, fuck. So it's happening again. And I didn't quite want to go to the hospital yet because I needed some time to myself. So I sat down and I played The Sims for an hour, and then I went to the emergency eye clinic and had a horrible day there. But that was enough to give me the multiple sclerosis diagnosis. And so I've been doing that. I've been doing MS for a while now, but yes, so I have both. And MS was a surprise. I wasn't really expecting to have another condition, at least one that was unrelated. Like I have lots of conditions related to EDS, like comorbidities, and they pop up, but I know what they are and I expect them. But MS was completely just out of left field. So that was interesting. But yes, so that's my diagnostic journey for both.
Georgia, thank you. I can't imagine how scary it must have been to go 12 years without this answer. That's a significant part of your life to just be passed around. That's wow. Well, thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate it. I'm eager to know, kind of, my second question is a follow-up to the first. What impact have these diagnoses had on your life? We've talked about your medical journey, interacting with doctors who maybe aren't as useful and then also sometimes are. Outside of a medical setting, though, socially, civically, what impact have these diagnoses had on your life?
Hmm. The Ehlers Danlos was really useful at the time, and part of the reason that I was chasing it so hard was because I was at university, and I was just really struggling to do work, to get stuff done, and I really needed a piece of paper to give to my university that said this person isn't just lazy. There's something wrong, and cut me some slack, please. So I really needed it for that. I suppose it was validating, after all that time, to have a yes, you do have this thing. I think at that point I was just so sick of, like, I'd gotten to a place where I believed myself and I didn't really need them to believe me, which was really lucky because obviously that doesn't always happen. And then diagnosis is really useful, for that kind of validation. But I already believed myself and I knew what was wrong. And even if they'd said no, I would have found another doctor. So apart from the helpful, you know, piece of paper that I could give to university, the Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis didn't really do too much because there's not very much medication, that you can give a person with EDS. It's just kind of like, well, don't do yoga, which is the main advice. Although it would have been useful, actually, saying that, knowing the things that you shouldn't do would have been very useful to have 12 years before that, because I did absolutely ruin my hip joints doing yoga, at a younger age, and then they'll never heal. They'll always be a lot more hypermobile and dislocated than they could have been. So I suppose that would have been helpful. In terms of the impact of the MS diagnosis on my general life, it's interesting. I think it's really shown me how bad, the health systems are at rare versus common disorders. And I guess that's influenced my work a lot. I had no idea people could get so much support from the medical system until I had MS. Like, they assign you a nurse and you can call that nurse and say, hey, I'm worried about this symptom. And they answer and they listen, which is just completely radically different from Ehlers-Danlos, like complete opposite. You're on your own with EDS, even though the EDS is the thing that probably affects my life the most. So I suppose having both of those diagnoses has really shown me, like, health inequalities and health inequities that has fed into the work I do, which does try to improve, on those health inequalities. And I'm at the moment trying to organize some talks at medical schools along the lines of how to not gaslight your patients, when they have a rare condition. So that should be hopefully useful. So yes, it's definitely influenced, like, my professional life and my mission for what I do, because my life is now surrounded around disability wellbeing and disability support, and trying to make people with chronic health conditions get the support they need to live a life they actually like, rather than this kind of weird bare minimum thing at least the UK government thinks you should be pleased with. But yes, in general, I think the kind of legitimizing the social aspect of having diagnoses hasn't been that useful for me. And I think sometimes that's where people are usually finding it useful. But I'm a little bit bloody minded, so even if they'd not told me, I would have been fairly firm in my own self belief. I guess that's been developed over time. I didn't always feel that way, but it's how I feel now. Does that answer your question? I feel like that was a little bit rambling.
I think it does answer my question. I really empathize, I guess, as someone with a rare condition here in the US. My wife is also disabled, but she has fairly more common conditions.
Mm.
So seeing the care that she gets from her doctors, just as you say, and then seeing the care that I get from my one specialist there's a real difference there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Georgia, thank you so much. You've really been on this long journey, and I love how you advocate for yourself and how you've reached this place of self-acceptance and independent acceptance where you don't need others to believe you necessarily. If you could go back in time, or even if you could advise some young kid who's just starting out on this disease journey, what
Mm.
advice would you give them?
Probably first and foremost to trust your body, to trust what your body is telling you. We have a medical system that is really, really great at figuring out certain issues, like a broken bone or anything that shows up really nicely on a blood test, or anything that you can like X-ray or MRI scan. Like those diagnostic tools are not the be all and end all of diagnosis. So if you're in pain, a doctor saying, we don't know why, does not make your pain not real or invalid. It's just as real and valid. It just doesn't have a nice, pretty label to put on it. So I think I would tell a person who's looking for an EDS diagnosis, if you're in the UK, go private if you can afford it, because they closed. So the only place in London you could get a diagnosis was this London hypermobility clinic, and we're the capital of the UK, and they've closed that now. So it's even longer than it was when I was trying to be diagnosed. So if you can, and you're looking for a diagnosis for a rare condition, and you have the money, just go private. I don't like recommending that for the NHS because I'm all for national healthcare systems, and it does undermine national healthcare systems when we go private. But in these cases, your health is kind of worth it, I think. I would also say, I suppose, that happiness is not the things you see in films. It's not a job or a partner or a marriage or a kid. It's not a tick box exercise. It's looking at what pleases you in the moment and trying to do more of that. And I know with myself with disability, when I first started to get really unwell, I started to get really scared that I would never have the things that I wanted, that I'd always planned to have, not really realizing that I didn't need those things, that they weren't representing actually a happy life. They were representing what films and TV had taught me a happy life looks like. And as we all know, films and TV, they're not necessarily representative. So I suppose I would also say try to keep an open mind about what happiness is, and really, really listen to your head and heart in the moment, not when you're like looking from the outside, like, what do I want? Like in the moment when you feel happy, what was happening and how can you get more of that thing? I don't know if that's useful advice, but it's what I've got at this moment.
I think it's very useful advice. In fact, it's advice that I would take myself uh, as someone who generally prefers to be happy. Uh, Georgia, I've had a great time speaking with you, hearing your story, and meeting you. Thank you so much as we close for taking part in True Disabled Story. I want to close by offering you a chance that I give all my interviewees, regardless of project. You can share one recent win or anything cool you have in the pipeline. If you're looking to like build an online following or you're up to connect, if you want to give a shout out where people can find you online, that's cool too. But overall, just wanted to give you a space to promote yourself and be your own cheerleader. So let's hear it.
Sure. I suppose in terms of recent wins, the one that like popped into my head immediately when you said it was I've been shortlisted. In the UK, we have this thing called the Disability 100, which is the 100 most influential disabled people in the UK. And I've been shortlisted, which is really exciting and just really nice. It's validating. It means I've been doing some work that people seem to think is worthwhile. So that's really nice. Finding me online. So it depends. If you're looking for kind of like disability support or mentorship, that would be the website of the organization I run. So that's well-adapt.com, or on Insta as well.adapt. If you're looking for me in kind of more of a performery, artisty, dancery way, which is the other side of what I do, that's Instagram, and that would be It Is My Body. And you can probably tell by the title that it has a very firm stance on what is and isn't other people's opinions. So if you don't like things like pole dancing, I would recommend you don't go and look at that Instagram. But that's my kind of more activisty, artsy side. So those are the two places.
Georgia, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our time together, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here.
Of course.